I was tortured by the eunuchs in the imperial mausoleum until I was left battered and bruised. After returning to the capital, Yuanchang praised me, saying I had finally become obedient. I felt like a puppet on strings, but instead of being placated, he seemed even more anxious. He touched my face and said, "A-Jin, do you not love me anymore?" I responded weakly, "Isn't this what you wanted?" The new emperor ascended the throne and granted a general amnesty. This was my chance to return to Yuanchang. That day, the streets were lively with lion dances and dragon parades. The city was filled with dignitaries dressed in new clothes, respectfully lining the streets and shouting, "Long live the emperor." Everyone was beaming with joy, except for me, who was terrified. Wearing a veil, I cowered in the crowd, hiding like a mouse in the shadows. I kept my head down, sticking close to the walls to avoid attention. My straw sandals were worn out, and every step I took on the bluestone pavement was excruciatingly painful. With each step, I left a trail of bloody footprints, quickly covered by the dust stirred up by the crowd. When Yuanchang sent me to the mausoleum to pray and chant sutras, he said it was to temper my temperament. Now, as I walked back from the mausoleum to Yuanchang, no one knew how I had endured those days and nights. I just wanted to go home, to see if my father was still alive. But fate was cruel. The more I tried to hide, the more I drew the attention of a group of men. They blocked my path, laughing and trying to lift my veil. "Are you in such a hurry to meet your lover?" I trembled uncontrollably, like a frightened bird. Memories overwhelmed me, and I couldn't stop myself from begging. "Please, I'll be good. Just let me go." I closed my eyes, expecting to be beaten. When I finally dared to open my eyes, I realized I had escaped from the mausoleum. Before I could stand up, the men laughed and pulled off my veil. There was nowhere left to hide. The sky seemed to be collapsing. That was all I could think. Haha, a young head. Haha, look, a proper young lady with a young head. The laughter was relentless. "Don't touch me. Let me go. I'll be good. I'll be good." Even after escaping, Yuanchang's sky remained gray. I felt like I was being roasted alive, with everyone pointing and staring at me. The nightmarish days were back before me. The chief eunuch of the mausoleum said I was disobedient and had to have my head shaved to focus on Buddhism. He closed his eyes and waved the scissors menacingly. I struggled fiercely, afraid of harming my face. He yanked my hair, tearing out a chunk of my scalp. In the end, my hair was left in a mangled mess. Half of it was left in disarray, like a ghost, while the other half was shaved unevenly. He looked proudly at his handiwork and said, "It looks better this way." Since then, I dared not look in the mirror or face anyone. The chief eunuch laughed, still daring to like King Yuanchang. I covered my head and cried until my voice was hoarse. I couldn't bear it anymore, not at all. Now, people surrounded me, their laughter piercing and turning into a dark mist that crawled up my spine. In the next moment, someone recognized me. "Isn't this the legitimate daughter of the head of the Imperial Medical Department?" That head of the department, wasn't his family confiscated and exiled?
What?
I ran home like a madwoman, but the men blocked my way, toying with me as I darted left and right. "Let her go." A cold command came from a distant carriage. That voice froze me in place, and I could barely move, nearly fainting. It was Yuanchang. I was forcibly escorted onto the carriage. He frowned and looked at my hair. "After all this time of fasting and chanting, how have you still strayed from the path?" Everything started from Yuanchang's birthday. That day, the sixth prince Yuanchang finally came of age and was appointed as a prince. Ignoring propriety and my father's objections, I stormed into the residence of the now Prince Yuanchang. My affection for him was well known. For his birthday, I gave him a family heirloom of the Fu family, the Qilin blood, which could neutralize all poisons. When my father arrived, Yuanchang was holding the Qilin blood and smiling in a way that felt like a spring breeze. I was deeply captivated, unable to pull myself away. He rarely smiled, And that one smile made it all worth it. My father couldn't pull me away. Furious, he scolded me for tarnishing the Fu family's reputation and severed ties with me on the spot. Before he could leave in anger, news of a terrible event came from the palace. Fu Yuanchang, pale-faced, hurried to the palace with my father. Soon, white flags were raised, and the funeral bells echoed throughout Yuanchang. The late emperor had been poisoned. An investigation revealed that poison had been added to his calming medicine before his nap. Everyone on duty at the Imperial Medical Department was executed. As the head of the department, my father was held accountable. When I rushed to the palace to save him, the trial was already halfway through. With each blow, my father twitched and spat blood. I am wronged. I was loyal to the late emperor. Fu Yuanchang's face was filled with sorrow, his eyes cold as never before. He said, "If you were truly loyal, then go guard my father's spirit and chant sutras for him." I was shocked. The mausoleum was remote, and my father was in a pitiable state. Sending him to his death. That was when I first realized that he was no longer the hungry child hiding in the cold palace. Back then, I had pitied him, holding his hand and begging my aunt to show him mercy. My aunt, having been in the palace for years with no children, could not resist my persistent pleas and took him in. At that time, he was just an unfavored prince. I used my family's money and pastries to secretly deliver them to him while visiting my aunt. This continued for nearly 10 years. Every year on the late emperor's birthday, knowing his purse was light, I prepared generous gifts and sent them to him. Even the late emperor smiled and told my aunt, "When A-Jin comes of age, how about marrying her to the sixth prince?" With this encouragement, I visited the sixth prince's residence even more frequently. I pleaded with Fu Yuanchang, bowing until my head bled, begging him to spare my father's life. "You are so filial, then you can replace the head of the Imperial Medical Department." He stared at me with a resolute gaze that made me shiver. All right, it was just chanting sutras. At that time, I naively thought it was all just a facade. As a prince, he had to do this to appease public anger, and it was all just a diversion. He must have had special feelings for me, I thought. Until, in the mausoleum, eunuchs took turns to torment me. No food, no shelter, endless tasks, and frequent beatings until I submitted. I begged Fu Yuanchang to rescue me, but for an entire year, he never once came to see me. Through countless ceremonies, I waited at the mausoleum's entrance for him. From dawn till dusk, I filled the oil lamps repeatedly. He stood at the head of the ministers, not sparing me even a glance. I gritted my teeth, offering my last gold ingot to the chief eunuch to deliver a message to Fu Yuanchang. Fu Yuanchang's reply was, "Just focus on chanting sutras for the late emperor." His indifference marked the beginning of my nightmare. The chief eunuch, with a flicker of disdain in his eyes, touched my face. "So King Yuanchang no longer wants you?" I struggled to pull away. "Shout louder. Maybe King Yuanchang will hear you." That day, my pride was ruthlessly broken. Dozens of eunuchs held me down, stripped me of my robes, and humiliated me. They made me write scriptures in blood, once every 10 days, claiming it was to show sincerity. In the desolate mausoleum, with nothing to do, they made me use my fingers to extinguish one lamp after another, then light candles with my mouth, repeating the process. I remember in the heavy snow, my blood alone could not fill a page of absurdity. My frail body could not satisfy the chief eunuch's cruel fantasies. It was the ailing Prince Shun who stopped the eunuchs from forcing me to dance naked in the snow. Those nightmarish days lasted a whole year. 3. I knelt in the carriage, overwhelmed by fear. Seeing me trembling like a frightened bird, Fu Yuanchang let out a light laugh. "What's wrong? Afraid of me? Afraid of you?" It was only then that I noticed the golden dragon embroidered on the bright yellow boots before me. With the sudden death of the previous emperor, the throne was left vacant, and the princes fought openly and secretly, each trying to outmaneuver the others. It didn't matter who became the emperor. All I wanted was to escape, to leave the filthy imperial tomb, to get away from Fu Yuanchang. In a good mood, Fu Yuanchang poured me a cup of tea. But my fear was at its peak, and I trembled so much that I spilled the entire cup. He looked at himself with satisfaction, assuming my fear was due to his status. He reached out to help me, but as soon as he touched me, I instinctively swatted his hand away and retreated to a corner of the carriage, trying to distance myself from him. "Don't touch me. Please, just let me go. I'll do whatever you want." His deep black eyes assessed me, and the smile on his lips faded into a mocking expression. I clung tightly to my head, feeling dazed, as if a variety of weapons would come crashing down on me at any moment. After a long while, I hesitantly lifted my head. "Are you still blaming me for making you temper your character?" I quickly shook my head, banging it on the ground like I did in the tomb. "No, no. Don't resist, don't resist. I want to live." Perhaps the sound of my teeth chattering reached him. He lowered his gaze and stopped looking at me. It's just reciting scriptures. You act as if you've suffered so much." "Yes, just reciting scriptures. I nearly died from it." "What about my father?" I asked softly. He frowned and ignored me. The carriage entered the palace, and I followed behind him, keeping my head down and doing whatever he said, whether to sit or kneel. He pushed a plate of pastries toward me, but I dared not move. "Eat." Following his command, I grabbed the pastries and stuffed them into my mouth, swallowing hard. One after another, even though I could hardly fit any more, I kept eating, my mouth hurting from the strain, afraid to stop. The palace servants watched me in shock, including my aunt who rushed over to see me. The crumbs of the pastries fell to the ground, and I instinctively bent down to lick them up. "Stop. Don't eat anymore." My aunt rushed over, knocking the pastries out of my hands and instructing the servants to restrain me and pry my mouth open. Fu Yuanchang, however, seemed inexplicably angry. Yes, he told me to eat, so why did I stop? I hurriedly bent over, fighting with the servants, and Fu Yuanchang smashed the delicate plate into pieces. "Enough. Song A-Jin, I've brought you back. What more do you want?" My aunt patted my back sympathetically. "A-Jin, it's been a year. Don't be angry with the emperor, okay?" "Angry? What is there to be angry about?" As a discarded pawn, I had no right to be angry. Go. Ask those in the tomb how they taught her manners this year, how she's become even more unruly. Fu Yuanchang, in a fit of rage, threw down objects and left. Once he was gone, I no longer wished to see him, even though I once longed to be with him all day. It was only after he had been gone for a long time and my aunt was crying and hugging me that I began to calm down. Now the Dowager Empress, my aunt, with red eyes, gently stroked my hair. I still feared being touched by others, instinctively pulling away. My aunt cried, "What happened to you?" I opened my mouth but hadn't yet explained. "Sister is back." A clear female voice made my spine stiffen. Sister could have gone into seclusion, but chose to show loyalty to Lord Song. What a pity about that beautiful hair. Su Rushi moved gracefully, her fair face smiling, radiating an air of fresh elegance. But my legs went weak, and I felt like running away. 4. If Fu Yuanchang was my nightmare, Su Rushi was the root of that nightmare. She also liked Fu Yuanchang. I clearly remember that she had once gone to the imperial tomb and called the chief eunuch godfather. It was under her instigation that the eunuchs in the tomb found ways to torment me. I didn't want to fight with her or compete for Fu Yuanchang. I just wanted to leave, take my father, and find a remote place to never return to Yuanchang. Sister, why so distant? Your father's health has improved greatly. He is now recuperating at my residence and misses you dearly. Su Rushi's small hand, icy cold, rested on my arm, making me shiver like a snake. My father is with her? I looked to my aunt for confirmation, and she, with gratitude in her eyes, said, "Thanks to Miss Su, your father was saved from death during his exile." Miss Su pleaded with the emperor and brought him back. She nudged me, signaling me to thank Su Rushi. I shuffle my feet, my throat dry. Thank her? My current predicament is all thanks to her. How can I thank her? Su Rushi picked up a chair and leisurely drank tea, clearly waiting for me to bow and show my gratitude. Looking closer, her dark green robe was covered by a vermilion cloak, and her every movement had an almost empress-like air about it. Ahem, Miss Song is back. Thank you for the medicine you gave me before. I am now much better. I must properly thank you. Just as I was hesitating to approach, Prince Shenwang suddenly appeared. Su Rushi quickly stood up. She dared to sit in front of the powerless Dowager Empress, but was still polite and modest before the prince. After all, she was not yet the empress. I breathed a sigh of relief. Even though I had lost my dignity and was kneeling, I did not want to kneel to her. Remembering Prince Shenwang's previous help, I had once written a prescription for him, which had created a bond between us. After exchanging pleasantries with Prince Shenwang, Su Rushi looked puzzled as she observed my acquaintance with him, her fine Su embroidery handkerchief crumpled in her grasp. My aunt wanted me to stay in the palace for a while to accompany her. I opened my mouth to refuse, but couldn't bring myself to do so. Fu Yuanchang was dutiful, visiting my aunt daily. I wore a veil and sat quietly by the side, never looking up at him. I maintained the demeanor of a well-bred lady, ensuring no improper behavior. He looked at me with satisfaction. It seems this devotion to Buddhism has had some effect. I nodded obediently. It had been over half a month since my return. Aside from my desperate desire to see my father, I would accept whatever he said. I was wrong before, and I shouldn't have opposed the emperor. I won't do that again. Seeing me so submissive, Fu Yuanchang was even more pleased. He rewarded me with a beautiful brocade and ordered the artisans to make a wig for me. My aunt, relieved, helped me put on the realistic wig, looking at me in the mirror with a smile. Apart from the empress, what position would you like? A warning bell rang in my mind, but I forced myself to remain calm. Aunt, Miss Su has done so much for our family. She and the emperor are in love. How could I repay her kindness with ingratitude by competing with her for the emperor's favor? Please never mention this again. My aunt looked at me in surprise. Aren't you fond of the emperor since childhood?
How? Don't say it.
I'm afraid. I no longer like him. Seeing my face turn pale, my aunt, full of sympathy, said, "Good child, are you still hoping for the position of empress? Our Song family is no longer what it used to be." Aunt, I interrupted her, taking a deep breath to stay calm. I have come to understand through reciting scriptures that in this lifetime, I would rather accompany the lamp and the Buddha. I am willing to shave my head as a sign of my resolve. With that, I pulled off the wig, causing my aunt to frantically wave her hands, indicating that she would no longer bring it up. In the midst of the struggle, I caught a glimpse of a bright yellow corner of a robe disappearing outside the window.
5.
Fu Yuanji hadn't shown up for several days. In the past, I would have been frantic, trying every possible way to see him, even though we were separated by just a wall. Several times, I saw his entourage pass by the palace gate, but I pretended not to notice. My aunt sighed. It's good you've managed to let go. Su Rushi, on the other hand, was quite diligent, repeatedly testing me. Yuanchang has been working hard lately. I've made some ginseng soup at home. Would you like to deliver it to him? I was copying scriptures by the window, the only time I could clear my mind of distractions. Fu Yuanchang's goal had indeed been achieved. He had tempered my character. Hearing her, I calmly set down my brush and, after letting the ink on the paper dry, smiled as I declined. I am a sinner's descendant, and it would be inappropriate for me to taint Mrs. Sincere intentions. It's better if you deliver it yourself. Afraid she wouldn't believe me, I looked at her sincerely and said, I don't like him anymore. Really? Su Rushi's lips curved into a smile as she stepped closer. I forced myself to stay calm, controlling the instinct to retreat. She said slowly, Don't think that by retreating, you can win against me. Think about your father. Think about my father. The fear of the past surged back, and I eventually stepped back, forgetting the desk behind me. I bumped into the corner of the desk and fell to the ground. Su Rushi, what are you doing? A roar came from outside the door, and in the next moment, the The scent of dragon's saliva filled the air as Fu Yuanchang enveloped me in his arms. It wasn't me. She fell by herself. Su Rushi hurriedly explained. Be quiet. Go back and reflect on your actions. Fu Yuanchang's muscles tensed, and he looked extremely angry. Su Rushi shot a vicious glance at me, her eyes full of malice, bringing back memories of the tomb. The whips on my body, the hot oil on my arms, and the dirty hands that had swarmed me all came flooding back. Fu Yuanchang tried to hold me tighter. I recoiled in terror, struggling desperately. Don't touch me. I'm sorry. I don't like Fu Yuanchang anymore. In my extreme fear, I fainted. The imperial doctor said it was due to not seeing people for a long time causing my heart condition. With time, I would get used to it. When I awoke again, it was pitch black, with only the palace lanterns outside the window flickering in the night. Someone sat not far from me in the room, and I instinctively wrapped myself tighter. Fu Yuanchang sat in the darkness, tears glistening in his eyes, which was astonishing. It must be my eyes deceiving me. How could he be crying? The palace had lit calming incense, and I drifted back into a haze of sleep. The next day, seeing the empty chamber, I thought it must have been a dream. Prince Shenwang came to visit my aunt, and coincidentally, he brought many exotic trinkets from foreign lands and, unexpectedly, a letter for my father. My aunt, intending for me to interact more with people, used the excuse of poor health to leave me there alone. I felt helpless and restless. Prince Shenwang smiled warmly. I often saw you crying at the imperial tomb, and I thought you must be missing home. As luck would have it, I was visiting the Su residence, and they asked me to bring a letter for you. All is well.
Don't worry about me.
Just these 8 words made my tears flow instantly. A wave of boundless grievance and unspoken sadness surged within me. The dark days of the past year felt like a torrential downpour, and I found an outlet for my pent-up emotions. Now it was Prince Shenwang's turn to be at a loss. He hurriedly searched for a handkerchief, but, not daring to touch anything in my aunt's palace, in a moment of desperation, he tore a piece off his sleeve to wipe my face, covered in snot and tears. A perfectly good brocade robe was ruined like this. The more I cried, the more upset I became, and my tears increased, making Prince Shenwang's sleeves useless. With red, swollen eyes, I looked at him, raising his arms and rubbing his white inner garment, and said with a mixture of laughter and tears, "Fortunately, I'm afraid of the cold and am dressed warmly. You should cry instead." Seeing his awkwardness, I couldn't help but smile. When he saw me smiling, he spun around for me to admire his new look. I laughed again. Turning around, I saw Fu Yuanchang standing outside the palace door, his face dark with anger, not knowing how long he had been standing there. Behind him, the eunuch timidly held a bowl of calming medicine. It had gone cold. 6. In the face of Fu Yuanchang, I couldn't force a smile. His eyes were filled with anger I couldn't understand. What was he angry about? I had even continued to copy scriptures, pray, and worship the Buddha since returning, conducting myself with utmost caution, as if I hadn't done anything wrong. I continued copying the scriptures in silence. I've already punished Su Rushi by making her reflect in isolation. What else do you want? I looked at him in confusion.
I didn't want anything.
He gritted his teeth and asked, "Why do you avoid me like the plague, ignoring me, while laughing and chatting with others?" I was at a loss for words, unable to respond. I could only lower my head and continue copying. Enough. Stop copying. Fu Yuanchang, in a fit of rage, tore apart my scriptures and swept all the writing materials off the desk onto the floor. Something was wrong. Before I could figure it out, his next words left me even more puzzled. Prepare yourself. The calendar bureau has chosen a date for next month. His dark eyes held an inscrutable meaning, his long lashes hiding all his emotions. What date? Seeing my bewildered expression, he impatiently said, "Since you returned and staged so many dramas, wasn't it to attract my attention and gain a title for yourself?" I hurriedly shook my head, but he didn't give me a chance to speak. "You've succeeded. You've caught my attention. Do you know how I've spent the past year while you were in the imperial tomb? It was the Su family who supported me to the throne. They have always been detached from worldly matters, humble and talented. I should have made her empress. I frowned. I hadn't said a word. This had nothing to do with me. From today on, move to Fengyi Palace and wait peacefully. Fengyi Palace, right next to his study, had once been the residence of the late empress. He turned and walked away, and I hurriedly followed. Your Majesty, I am the descendant of a sinner, unworthy of you. Please let me go. He suddenly stopped. Call me Yuanchang. He turned back and seemed about to pinch my face, but perhaps recalling that day's events, he eventually let his hand drop. Stop with the pretense of retreating to advance. Don't overreach. I can pardon your father, but it's impossible to restore his previous position. What did this have to do with my father? Servants came to pack my things, and my aunt, looking pleased, clasped her hands together in prayer, excitedly mumbling, "Heaven has eyes. Bless the Song family." But I had other plans. I wanted to distance myself from Fu Yuanchang and take my father away. Su Rushi would certainly agree. Once I left, she would become the empress. My aunt was the dowager empress. He couldn't do anything to her.
So I ran.
Amid the chaos of servants moving things, I stole the waist plaque of my aunt's personal steward, disguised myself as a maid, and sneaked out of the palace. But before I could leave the palace gates, I was discovered. The palace was swarming with imperial guards, every palace being turned upside down. Hiding behind a low wall at the palace gate, I saw a column of imperial guards approaching. It was over. My efforts had come to nothing. It felt as if the heavens had never been on my side. Just as I was preparing to surrender, a carriage suddenly appeared in front of me. A strong hand reached out from behind the curtain, revealing Prince Shenwang's playful smile. Facing that bony hand, I forced myself to suppress the fear of being touched, grasped it, and quickly climbed into the carriage. Prince Shenwang, aren't you staying to play a game of chess with me? Fu Yuanchang's voice, filled with anger, came through the curtain. I hid behind Prince Shenwang, pressing close to his back, while his large cloak enveloped me tightly. Cough, it's time for your medicine. Prince Shenwang and Fu Yuanchang faced off silently. After a long time, the carriage fell back into darkness. The clatter of the horses' hooves carried me away, and I had finally escaped. It felt as if the air outside the palace had come alive. For the first time, I smelled sweetness in the air and took a deep breath. I heard a soft chuckle and realized, in my nervousness, I was still pressed tightly against Prince Shenwang's back. I could hear the pounding of his heart clearly. I turned red instantly. Your Majesty might hold a grudge. I've taken his empress. I might be implicated. I bit my lip, realizing he was indeed not part of my original plan. In the dim carriage, his eyes shone brightly. Have you considered taking me with you? 7. The capital city began a strict lockdown, making entry and exit even more difficult than climbing to the heavens. I was hiding in a civilian residence that Prince Shenwang had found. Before I could seek out Su Rushi, she came to me first. Her eyes were red, full of hatred. You're quite the actress, playing hard to get, then framing others. What's your new act? Luring me into a trap? What about my father? Let him go, and I'll help you become the empress. Su Rushi didn't believe me. She said, if Yuanchang knew you had been with the eunuchs, would he still make you empress? No, he wouldn't. Su Rushi laughed. So, your leverage was never in your hands. But I laughed too and said, haven't you heard the rumors? People say the new emperor treats the empress very well, that Fengyi Palace has been renovated more luxuriously than the celestial palaces. The new emperor even went to the imperial tomb today to announce it to the ancestors. Su Rushi's face changed dramatically, and she turned to leave. That evening, Prince Shenwang brought a box of pear flower cakes to see me. I was surprised he knew my preference. He smiled. I've envied sixth brother for having someone care for him since we were young. I felt a bit embarrassed, but he just smiled. He said the new emperor had purged the imperial tomb, executing all eunuchs from top to bottom. They were all hanged, cut with dozens of small wounds, and bled to death. Especially that chief eunuch, who had his tongue cut out, was paraded naked and finally executed slowly with knives. It seemed he knew what I had endured in the imperial tomb. The cold wind made me shiver. Prince Yuanchang disguised me as a servant and took me to the Su residence to rescue my father. Unexpectedly, Fu Yuanchang was sitting grandly in the main hall of the Su residence, clearly having waited for a long time. "Here you are, my dear brother." Though he addressed Prince Yuanchang, his gaze was fixed on me, leaving me nowhere to hide. Prince Yuanchang stepped forward, blocking his view, and said with a gentle smile, "I heard the Song family is a medical family. My brother came specifically to seek treatment. Then the Empress must be a kind-hearted person, coming to guide you?" My throat tightened, and the fear in my bones made me lower my head, unable to speak. Su Rushi knelt beside me, trembling, with clear handprints on her face swollen and bruised. She glared at me with venom, indicating Fu Yuanchang knew everything. "A-Jin, I was previously neglectful, letting the servants take advantage.
Don't blame me.
I'm very pained." What he slipped in his eyes couldn't possibly be tears. Fu Yuanchang approached me step by step, and the pressure made me want to struggle again. As I took a step back, he grabbed my arm. "A-Jin, don't you like me? I'll make you the Empress, give you wealth and honor. Let's be together for the rest of our lives, all right?" From his lofty position, I heard an edge of pleading for the first time. How laughable. This was once what I had desperately wanted. The heavens are rarely in favor, and things often go against one's wishes. I tried, but I couldn't overcome myself. I collapsed to the ground. "I don't like you anymore. Please leave me alone." The tiny cuts on my fingers, the biting cold of dancing barefoot in the wind, all came rushing back, and I fell into darkness once more. "A-Jin. A-Jin." Three men's voices echoed. Amid the roar, I heard my father's voice. I pushed through the crowd and saw a solitary light in the back room. I instinctively crawled towards it. In Su Rushi's almost mad delight, I saw an old face. My mind cleared, then shattered. My father was locked by the neck, nailed to the door, unable to stand, only able to squat on the ground. He hunched over, his murky eyes looking at me, tears streaming down his face. He trembled, unable to speak a word. In his opening and closing mouth, he lacked half a tongue. A surge of hot blood filled my head in an instant, overwhelming hatred erupting as I spat out a rebellious curse. "Fu Yuanchang, I'm going to kill you."
9.
The Su family, who had contributed to the dragon's success, ultimately escaped punishment. When I awoke, I found myself surrounded by opulence. Gold, silver, and precious jewels adorned the floor, and the scent of dragon's saliva wafted through the air. It was indeed Fingy Palace. Fu Yuanchang sat at my footstool, his eyes filled with remorse. His eyes were red-rimmed as he looked at me. "A-Jin, it's Su Rushi's wicked heart. I instructed her to take good care of you." Oh, how the great emperor still preferred to shirk responsibility, just like when he was a child. "Then kill her," I said coldly, watching the panic in his eyes. "A-Jin, don't force me. The Su family helped me ascend to the throne. I cannot forget their favor. Rest assured, my harem will have only you. Su Rushi will never enter the palace again." I smiled. "Your Majesty, who can rival you in ruthlessness? When the previous emperor passed away, you were by his side, and I had given you the Qilin blood. Why didn't you use it?" Fu Yuanchang's eyes flashed with a moment of sharpness, mixed with murderous intent as he looked at me. My father's tongue was cut off because of this, wasn't it? I stared at him, and he lowered his gaze, not meeting mine. That was a tacit admission. Regret overwhelmed me. Even a child knows the fable of the farmer and the snake. How could I have forgotten it? "A-Jin, trust me once more. I swear I will treat you well for the rest of my life." I smiled and cried at the same time. Wasn't the previous emperor good to you? Wasn't my aunt good to you? Wasn't my father good to you? Wasn't I good to you? And what is the result? Fu Yuanchang suddenly stood up, enraged, his eyes filled with fury. I had struck a nerve. Don't talk nonsense. What nonsense was I speaking? In a flash of realization, I suddenly had an incredible suspicion. The previous emperor was poisoned. By whom? I looked at him in disbelief. He clenched his fists and said, "A-Jin, you cannot not like me. I like you, and you can only stay by my side." I was locked in Fingy Palace, living in luxury every day like a caged bird. After thinking for several days and nights, I began a hunger strike in protest. In the middle of the night, my aunt came to see me secretly. Dressed in coarse linen, plain and devoid of gold or jewelry, she looked much older, her hair now graying. She had been demoted to a remote palace and, before leaving, advised me through the window. "A-Jin, don't defy him. Obey him, and there will be blessings to come." So this is the so-called favor you gave me, Fu Yuanchang? My family has suffered humiliation. How could I be content to become his plaything? I started to eat obediently, and Fu Yuanchang's face showed signs of happiness. One night, while I was asleep, a palace maid knocked on the door, bringing a midnight snack. I waved my hand dismissively, but glanced at what the maid was bringing. Pear flour cakes. As the maid left, I hesitated and picked up the largest one. As expected, it contained a note. "Everything is under control." The calendar bureau had selected a date for the imperial ceremony, just 3 days away. More than 100 embroiderers worked through the night to make wedding garments. Fu Yuanchang personally attached a large luminous pearl to the embroidered shoes and brought them to me, eagerly bending down to let me try them on. "A-Jin, now that I have you, I have no regrets." I looked at him coldly, disdain evident in my gaze. At this time, news of the Empress Dowager's passing arrived. I pushed past the expectant Fu Yuanchang and ran to my aunt's palace. "No, aunt, please don't." But my aunt, dressed in her finest clothes, her hair styled as it was when she knew the late emperor, lay there with a smile, her warmth gone. I collapsed over her, crying bitterly. Fu Yuanchang followed behind, explaining, "I didn't do it. I never forced her." I knew, but I still hated him. With the Empress Dowager's death, the entire country mourned. The imperial ceremony was cancelled. My aunt used her life to buy me time.
10.
On the day of my aunt's funeral, I threw the basin. Fu Yuanchang followed behind me, silent. I felt he was unworthy. I accompanied the coffin, escorting my aunt on her final journey. She was to be buried alongside the previous emperor. In the imperial mausoleum, every blade of grass and every tree made me shiver. Here, Fu Yuanchang's guilt toward me reached its peak. Perhaps going mad wouldn't be too out of place. Today, all the civil and military officials, including the princes and nobles, gathered. Thousands of commoners also joined the procession, creating a vast sea of people. Taking advantage of the incense ceremony, I climbed onto my aunt's coffin. The Empress Dowager was poisoned, just like the previous emperor. My cry resonated clearly above the mournful crowd, quickly spreading throughout the imperial mausoleum. Prince Yuanchang stepped forward. "Nonsense. Do you have any evidence? The previous emperor was poisoned, and he died with a smile on his face. The Empress Dowager did too. I recognize this poison. It's called Anhao, a forbidden drug in the palace. The Anhao, that means everything is fine. Don't worry, my child. It causes death through hallucinations, making the victim die happily, which is why it is called Anhao." Fu Yuanchang's face changed instantly. He waved his hand, ordering people to seize me. I struggled. "The murderer is His Majesty. Please, all the princes, listen to me." The room erupted in an uproar. Prince Yuanchang stepped forward, stopping all the guards, and even kindly adjusted Fu Yuanchang's heaving chest. "This is a serious matter. Let's hear it out. Miss Song, do you have evidence?" "Yes." I took a deep breath. My father was the former director of the Imperial Medical Academy. It will be clear upon questioning. Fu Yuanchang looked at me throughout with an expression of disbelief, unable to accept that I could love him deeply and yet seek his death. "It's a coincidence. This prince is weak and has searched for famous doctors everywhere. I happened to encounter Song's former director, who had fallen on the streets, and brought him here. Such coincidences are too convenient. Everyone knows that. My father stepped forward with a smile, revealing a blackened mouth that chilled everyone's hearts. Recalling Fu Yuanchang's past of bloodshed in the Imperial Medical Academy, this murder and cover-up charge seemed almost certain. But Fu Yuanchang just laughed. Ah, so you were kidnapped. The day the previous emperor died, I was indeed in the palace. All my brothers knew I wasn't there. Everyone turned their gaze toward me, waiting for me to present evidence. I had no choice but to poke Prince Shenwang again. Ahem, it's a coincidence. This prince happened to rescue Miss Su Rushi, who was forced to jump off a cliff by thieves. Upon hearing Su Rushi's name, Fu Yuanchang could no longer maintain his composure. He moved his finger, and hidden guards advanced to take Su Rushi's life, but Prince Shenwang, who had been prepared, stopped them. Su Rushi's eyes were full of hatred, tears streaming down her face. Yuanchang, I followed your orders. If you told me to kill, I would kill. If you told me to poison, I would poison. You promised me the title of Empress. Why have you broken your word? You are a bridge burner. May you not end well. How did the previous emperor die? I asked her. She smiled bitterly. I dissolved on Hao into his soothing medicine. Where did you get on Hao? That's a forbidden drug in the palace. Su Rushi looked up, gazing once more at Fu Yuanchang, hoping for a response from him. But Fu Yuanchang's dark eyes were fixed entirely on me. He stepped forward, respectfully offering 3 sticks of incense at the previous emperor's grave, then turned and said clearly, it was I who provided it. 11. Fu Yuanchang had never paid much attention to me before. My aunt said it was because he had a strong sense of pride. I had witnessed his most awkward moments firsthand, so he was often uncomfortable around me. The better I treated him, the more uneasy he became. All his honors were achieved only with my strong support. He resented the late emperor, feeling bitter about being overlooked among so many sons. This grudge was planted deep in his heart and gradually took root. He chose to act on his coming-of-age day, believing it was his personal rite of passage. Patricide. The revelation that the emperor was the murderer shocked the entire court. He approached me, his eyes unreadable. Song Yujin, isn't it better to be my empress? I've made your aunt the empress dowager, and I've given you everything I can. What more do you want? I've never wanted wealth and honor. What I wanted was loyalty and affection. I took a step back and resolutely took Prince Shenwang's hand. Prince Shenwang wrapped his arm around my waist, smiling warmly. This prince happens to be unmarried and very devoted. Fu Yuanchang's gaze turned fiery as he looked at the hand around my waist. His anger surged, and he waved his hand. Kill them without mercy. Prince Shenwang lifted me in one leap, and with a whistle, numerous soldiers emerged from the crowd of onlookers, well-equipped and numerous, quickly engaging in combat with the Imperial Guard. I moved further away, leaving behind the reluctant and enraged Fu Yuanchang. Do you still want to be empress? Prince Shenwang asked. I looked at Fu Yuanchang, who was fleeing with his dragon crown knocked off and his hair disheveled, and shook my head firmly. Then, what if someone else becomes emperor? He spoke with an extremely serious face, but his words were frivolous. In that case, I need to ask my aunt. I watched as the imperial mausoleum receded into the distance, and tears finally fell. Don't cry, don't cry. Look at this. Prince Shenwang opened his palm to reveal a crystal, glowing with a blood-red light. It was Qilin blood. You stole it. Oh, that's quite an unpleasant way to put it. It was just a coincidence. He had taken it while pretending to appease Fu Yuanchang. But my aunt, my tears began to well up again. Prince Shenwang pretended to tear his sleeve, which slightly eased my tears. We've arrived. The carriage stopped, and I hesitated before getting out. It was the rejuvenated Song residence. Child. My father, who spoke unclearly, began to cry as soon as he opened his mouth. Don't scare the child. The gentle voice, softly chiding, could only belong to my aunt. I finally felt relieved. Wah! I threw myself into their arms and cried uncontrollably. Prince Shenwang brought out the Qilin blood, arranging for the servants to prepare medicine to purge the remaining poison from my aunt. My father wept with old tears streaming down his face, gesticulating and pointing, glad that I had understood the message. Everything was as planned. From the moment I escaped the palace, everything unfolded step by step according to plan, with only Prince Shenwang being an unexpected element. I had anticipated that Su Rushi wouldn't be easily manipulated and that she would use my father as leverage against me. I also anticipated that Fu Yuanchang would force me to appear and use my aunt as a pawn. Blessings are to come, was Prince Shenwang's coded signal, filling the gap in the plan and leading a strong force to complete the final phase. My original plan was to perish with Fu Yuanchang, exchanging my life for the world's condemnation of him. Changing the day and night was never straightforward. Prince Shenwang asked me again, "Do you want to be empress?" I replied, "It depends on you." Fu Yuanchang was eventually stripped of his title, and a prince with substantial military power took his place. I asked Prince Shenwang, "Why hand over the world so easily?" He smiled. "I took someone else's empress, so naturally. I'm wary of someone else taking mine." I pretended to hit him, but he grabbed my hand, producing a formal document for his new post, and said seriously, "Isn't leaving Bianjing what you wished for?" It was all for me. I was so moved I couldn't find the words. In response, I could only offer myself. He held me close and said, "Being a king on a mountain is far more interesting than being trapped within palace walls." Indeed, that was only natural. I wrapped my arms around his neck, feeling more secure than ever. A caged bird knows nothing of the joy of a mountain eagle. End of the text.